How's it going, everyone? NeedleMouse here. When it comes to Sonic racing games, Sonic has had many successes, like Sonic and All-Star Racing Transformed, but also had many failures, like Team Sonic Racing. But there's one Sonic racing game that stands above them all that I would like to talk about in today's video. A racing game that is by far the coolest and the most fun to play. Sonic Riders. While yes, the Riders series ended quite weakly, the first entry is perhaps the greatest Sonic racing game of all time, rivaling game franchises like the Mario Kart franchise and the Crash Racing games. Today, we will talk about the original Sonic Riders, and today I also brought on a very special guest, the Sonic Riders guy himself, trademarked, Accelerate.
Hey man, glad to be here. The Sonic Riders trilogy is quite possibly the greatest Sonic spin-off series of all time. I personally find a ton of enjoyment in each entry. While Riders was critically panned at launch for reasons we'll get into later, it's more recently seen a swell of fan appreciation in the form of various fan projects. And once you get the hang of it, it's not hard to see why. I've been completely addicted to it and its sequels since first trying the game out back in April. But what exactly makes this game so friggin' awesome? Well, that's what we're here to find out.
Let's start with the gameplay of Sonic Riders, and I'd say this is one of the most unique gameplay styles in all of Sonic, and in fact in any racing games. Unlike most racing games where you're in a car, Sonic and Co ride on these badass hoverboards called Extreme Gear. But how does the game control, and what makes this so unique?
So, you can move the analog stick to move, obviously, but like NeedleMouse said, this game is not your typical Mario Kart clone. You can press B or circle to boost, but that'll take energy away from your air meter. Air is essentially a gas tank for your hoverboard. If you run out, you can't hover on the board anymore, which kind of defeats the purpose of the whole thing. So how do you remedy this? Well, first, don't suck. Duh. Second, there are these pit stops throughout the race that you could use to refill your air if you're running low or have depleted the gauge.
I was recording this and look who came in. Raisin. Say hi to my subscribers. Say hi to my subscribers. As you can see, Sonic Riders is, for some fucking reason, very complicated compared to other racing games, even just based off of this. And we haven't even gotten to the trick system yet, which is quite complicated. Essentially, when jumping off a ramp, your character can perform tricks. Moving your stick in a certain direction will perform certain specific tricks. Landing a lot of tricks will get you a rank, and will give you a boost in speed. But if you land poorly, you will get a C rank and lose a ton of speed. This is very fun, but trying to nail this in your first couple of playthroughs will be hell and a half. But what exactly are the things Sonic and his friends are riding? So, Sonic and his friends ride on these things called Extreme Gear. They are essentially hoverboards that, well, hover above the ground. And that's about it. Their designs are actually really cool, and each hoverboard fits with the character designs very well. The default ones look like something the character they belong would ride, and there's also an in-game shop where you can purchase more. These hoverboards come with different kinds of abilities.
Such as grinding even if you're not a speed character, looking kinda cool, and sucking. Yeah, I mostly just stick to the base gears and Blue Star too, but some of these do look pretty cool. Dang it, Speed Balancer, you look awesome. Why'd you have to be just so awful? But hey, at least most of these gears range from pretty cool to alright.
Sonic Riders doesn't have cool designs only for the Extreme Gear. No, it also has amazing designs for the characters themselves. This is a Sonic redesign I can 100% get behind. Unlike some other designs. Sonic and Co get these absolutely perfect designs to go with their hoverboards, with slick new shoes and goggles. But of course, Sonic Riders doesn't just redesign the past characters, it also brings brand new ones. Introducing the Babylon Rogues, Storm the Albatross, Wave the Swallow, and of course, the one and only Jet the Hawk.
These are a set of new rivals for Sonic and friends to go up against, Jet himself following in the footsteps of Knuckles and Shadow before him. Jet is Sonic's counter, matching Sonic's ground speed with his airspeed, similar to how Knuckles matched Sonic's speed with his strength in Sonic 3. Jet's this cocky green guy who has a really funny edge to him. His energy is just great and really entertaining in these cutscenes. Wave is the rogue's mechanic. She's smart and a lot less crazy than Jet. And finally, Storm is this big dummy who's always a joy to watch in any given scenario. This game has a really unique art style. It's incredibly vibrant and bursting at the seams with color and pure Sonic awesomeness, but also has a futuristic, techie type look to a lot of its areas. There are 5 tracks in the game by default: Metal City, Splash Canyon, Egg Factory, Green Cave, and Sand Ruins. But later you can unlock alternate versions of these tracks: Night Chase, Red Canyon, Ice Factory, this track can go Pound Sand, White Cave, and Dark Desert. You can also unlock Digital Dimension, which is Hell, then Heaven, then Purgatory, I guess, as well as 2 Sega-themed stages, Sega Carnival and Illusion.
Most of these stages are actually hella fun, And the standout stage has to be Metal City. Not only is the stage's music really damn good, but the level design of the stage itself is also probably the best out of any stage in the game. So what I'm saying is, the game peaks right at the start, just like Riders as a whole, in the opinions of many. Man, that's kind of poetic, isn't it? God, do the levels get so much more difficult after this though. But another nice thing about them is how cleanly they fit into the story. Sonic Riders has actually a wonderful story. While the story isn't anything on the level of SA2 or Sonic Unleashed, it is still a great one. Essentially, the Babylon Rogues and Eggman are both after the same thing: to find the treasure of the Babylon Garden, a city that's lost in time. To do so, they need the 7 Chaos Emeralds, and so Eggman decides to hold an extreme gear competition where the entry fee is a Chaos Emerald. This is where Sonic and his friends come in, as they try to find the Babylon Garden themselves and put an end to Dr. Eggman's dastardly plans. I mean, at least it's better than anything else in the meta era, am I right? Now, this is Jason's second game, so his Sonic voice isn't perfected just yet. But his Jet voice is where my problems personally stem from. He's just Sonic, but if Sonic had a cold his entire life, like, listen to this.
Are you saying there's profit in this?
The f is that?
I don't care, man. In my eyes, Jet is just the best. They ruined this poor boy in Free Riders. Jason Griffith is the only Jet, and I will die on this hill. I mean, just listen to this noise he makes.
Those things must be after this stone.
Guess that settles it. The key to
But finally, we get to the most controversial part of Sonic Riders. Its difficulty. When you start the game, it is so difficult. It's on a whole different level. Like, the difficulty curve is absolutely insane. You'll be fumbling around for hours on this game having no idea what in the hell you're doing.
You are not kidding, man. This game is somehow worse at teaching its mechanics than Sonic Lost World. Sonic Lost World. I didn't even think that was possible.
Yeah, with how mid Lost World is, me neither. But if you put in the time and hours into this game, it truly becomes one of the best racing games you'll ever play. Like, I'm being completely serious when I say Riders is one of my favorite racing games of all time. It's just really, really fun. And just like any other Sonic game, if you put in the time and master the game, that's when it becomes incredibly fun. Unless, of course, we're talking about Sonic Forces, because that game is just piss easy.
The great gameplay, by the way, is set to some stellar music. The music in this game was composed by Tomonori Sawada, Fumiko Mitani, and Kenichi Tokoi, and it's all great stuff. The vocal tracks, Sonic Speed Riders and Catch Me If You Can, were sung by Rumblebee, who went on to do most of the music in Sonic and the Secret Rings. Speed Riders is a pretty alright tune. I think it's the weakest of the Riders series' main themes, but it's still some pretty solid music all around. Catch Me If You Can goes so friggin' hard though, and I will never pass up an opportunity to bang my head to this song. I also like this song used during the Babylonian exposition scene called Legend of Babylonians. It's a much calmer song than most of the music in this game, and I don't know, man, I just like it a lot. It sounds so mysterious. And clearly Sega agreed with me because they brought it back for the next Riders game.
That's right. I love Catch Me If You Can, and while I prefer the Zero Gravity version, God is this song just absolutely amazing. The stage music also fits the levels very well. Metal City, again, being the standout piece. Otherwise, the OST is just okay in my eyes. I mean, it's better than Sonic Forces OST, am I right?
So, how does Sonic Riders, with all of its intricacies and weird little quirks, hold up today? Well, I think it's aged alright. Graphically, it's not aged great. I mean, the models are pretty low poly, the textures aren't fantastic, but gameplay-wise, despite being somewhat jank, I'd say the game is still a lot of fun to this day, and it kinda sucks that these specific mechanics were never truly given another shot. Sonic Riders did get 2 sequels, but both of these are pretty different from the original, and despite the fact that I think they're both pretty cool on their own, well, like I said, it just kinda sucks that we can't have the best of both worlds. And then again, this is Sonic Team. That hardly ever happens.
I would also mention that the cutscenes have aged quite well. I think that these are some of the most expressive cutscenes there ever were, until of course Sonic Boom came around. For a game that came out in 2006, Riders aged a lot better than a certain other game that came out in 2006. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Accelerate. In conclusion, Riders is a wonderful game, and while unfortunately the Riders series would get worse from here, like, much worse from here, the first game still stands the test of time and shows us the true potential of the trilogy. The whole idea of Sonic characters on hoverboards is extremely cool, and this is what sets it apart from any other racing game. This game exemplifies why we need another Riders game. Sega, I am begging you, please, another Riders game.
Agreed, man. A new Sonic Riders game would be fantastic. Something that combines the best elements of all three games to create the ultimate Riders experience. This was just such a unique little game that was, and still is, a ton of fun to play, but its skill floor and ceiling essentially being synonymous made that hard to see for most players at the time, which just kinda sucks. Thanks for having me on, NeedleMouse.
Well, that's everything from me. And I hope you guys are having a wonderful day wherever you are in the world. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Ciao!